Saturday. Today, it's a conversation about spirit. How was your spirit this last week? Did you feel energized about your life, about your work, about your relationships? And even if you didn't feel energy, did you summon that spirit? You know, on teams, we always talk about that esprit de corps, right? The spirit, if you will, of the group, and how we feel as we operate and work together. Is there harmony? Is there team vibe? Is there a sense that we're all moving and rowing together? And I think in life, we also talk about joie de vivre, right? That joy of life that becomes spirit. Sometimes we talk about spirit in the sense of grounding. Do we feel a sense of soul type of spirit? And when I think about it, I always try to break it down. You know, whenever you take a concept, I try to break it down into 3 different levels, just for my own understanding. I think it's part of my own personal development. When I hear a new concept, so if you say confidence to me, I always say, okay, if I had to put 3 things in a big bucket and it was the recipe to create confidence, what are the 3 things that would create that? It's just something I always do in my personal development. So if I think about any given topic, if you say, Brendan, let's talk about ambition, I go, okay, these 3 things would be the recipe. Now, of course, there might be, in real life, greater complexity, 5, 10, 20 things. But for me, I just like to break down, like, what's 3 things that would make a recipe for that? And I was thinking about that this morning on my walk. I thought, oh, okay, recipe for spirit. What would that be? You know, what is it about, you know, a team spirit or an organizational spirit or the spirit of the family that makes it magical? And as some of you know, I'm a high performance coach, and I've had the blessing of coaching some of the, you know, the biggest names and from, you know, corporate America to Silicon Valley to athletics, all the way up to the Olympics, to startup teams, to family units. And I was thinking, what is the thing that gives people or a team spirit? I'd love you to think about that. Maybe you jot that down in your journal in Growth Day. Just type in spirit and capture what would be your 3 things. Before I share mine, one of my favorite things in personal development, I don't know if I ever told you all this before, but I often pause a podcast or pause an audiobook or pause a message like this when someone introduces an idea, and I'll pause it and I'll like, real quick, write my 3 things down, and then I'll continue listening. So if I'm listening to a podcast about relationships, you know, real quick, I'll write down the 3 things I believe would make great relationships, just so I capture my ideas. And then I listen. And what I love about that is it adds to it, or it, you know, makes it stronger, whatever I believe. So maybe you do that. What makes good spirit on a team, in your individual life, in a family? Because if you haven't thought about that, do you feel like you've been leading? If you haven't thought about that before, do you feel like you've been living to the vibrant, alive potential that you could have each week? See, I always know that people tell me all the time, I want our team, I want this to have spirit. I'm like, okay, what is that? And how are you setting that up? Because if we don't ask the question and suss out the strategy, how can we develop it? Now, I know I'm probably the only person who ever talked about spirit and use the word strategy, but you're talking to the high performance guy, okay? We got to go there. So it's practices that we set up in our own life or mindsets that we have that allow us to create the things that we want, right? Confidence has a recipe that you can run and create and bake, and all of a sudden you have confidence. And I think that's true with spirit. So obviously, I've been rambling on to give you time to think about your 3. Now, let's compare notes. I'll share my 3. If I'm going to have a sense of spirit, positive, energetic, buoyant, excited spirit in my individual life or in my relationships or in my family or in my workplace, here's the things that I really believe go into that. Number 1 is willingness. The willingness to jump in, the willingness to try, the willingness to experiment, the willingness to collaborate. It's an open-minded willingness to jump in, to take it on, to handle it. I think that willingness is important because it's hard to have a lot of spirit if you just sit back and you're unwilling to participate. If you have ever seen me coach a team before, when I work with teams, athletic, in the championships or, one-on-one, I always talk about this idea that the whole team has to be willing to play. That all-in nature, that willingness to be on the journey is so important. And that willingness to just jump in, to be all hands on deck. When you work with high-performing teams, you see that no one's like, well, that's not my job. Instead, when you see a high-performing team, they're like, let's do it. Let's handle it. Can I help? I think that's important. Willingness. Second thing I really believe is enthusiasm to learn and win. Enthusiasm, like a deep desire and excitement to try. So willingness to try, but an excitement to try and an excitement to actually win too. There's an outcome associated with the enthusiasm, right? You want something to happen. You want to create something. And so team spirit is obviously around this topic of winning often. And so you have to know, what are your wins? Because how do you have spirit for the week if you don't know what you're aiming towards? If you don't know what you want to achieve, or if you want to contribute, or you want your deliverables to be, it's like life is so easy to win if you decide what are the wins. And how do you have spirit if you don't know what you want to win at? So I think that's so important. So that's why I always tell you, make sure, if not Sunday, definitely on Mondays, you go into the plan section of Growth Day and you plan out your major deadlines or deliverables of the week. I know some people use the plan section for goals or projects or to-do lists, but the way I think about it is this is a good place to capture what I need to deliver and win at this week. And I think that's important too. Last big idea for me would be camaraderie. The desire to have fellowship, brotherhood, sisterhood, oneness on the journey together creates that final recipe, mix, ingredient to spirit. And so when I look back at the last week, I asked my question, was I willing? Was my team willing? Okay, good. Were we enthusiastic to learn and enthusiastic to win? Okay, good. And finally, was there camaraderie there? Was there a sense we're doing this together? Good job, guys. Good job, gals. Hey, we're making it happen here. This is cool. Aren't we lucky to be on this journey together? That's how I think about it. I've worked with families before where, a couple will have 5, 6 kids, and they're like, Brendan, can you help us? And I go, well, no, I don't have children. Not like that. Oh my goodness. Because, for those of you who are parents or have ever worked in coaching parents, that, the complexity from 2 kids to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 and beyond, you're like, oh my gosh, there's each one is a magnitude of difference in how you have to run that family, as you all know. So a lot of the time it'll be like, does the whole family feel like we're in it together? Like we're doing something important, like we're living our values, or we're doing these things for reasons. And when you look back at your life, I bet you can identify times in your life when you were down, or your company morale was down, team morale was down, willingness wasn't there, the enthusiasm became discouragement, and people broke out from the interdependent thinking that camaraderie summons into the independent, selfish thinking. The great teams in history, you always hear how the team ultimately did those things. They were all in. The willingness was there. They couldn't wait to win. They were enthusiastic even when they were losing because they were learning and setting up to win and dominate at the next level. And then there was a oneness. There was a harmony. There was a camaraderie in which a selflessness happened. and everyone was rowing together. Wow. Spirit. What a cool thing to think about on Saturdays, huh? I know we like to go deeper on Sundays and talk about soul and practice and religion or spirituality. But to me, esprit de corps, joie de vivre, spirit, whoo, I always like to look back and say, was it there? If it wasn't, let me bring that back, because as I always teach you guys at Growth Day, we just know that there's 4 primary aspirations. That's being, growing, relating, creating, all surrounded by growing. But one of the outcomes of those things, the actually things we want to feel, is aliveness, connection, meaning, and growth. That aliveness, yeah. Was there willingness? Was there enthusiasm? Was there camaraderie? If you're saying yes to all those today, well done, striver. What a great week. If you're saying no to any of those, well done, striver. That's some self-awareness, and now you got some to-dos. You got some intention for this next week, and you can change. We all believe here at Growth Day, you can change. Little shifts of intention, little shifts of attention, little shifts of our behavior, little shifts of our habits lead us to growing and becoming our greatest selves. Change is possible. Potential is there. Every day is a great day to grow.